Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a fascinating and often really surprising plunge into the mind-body connection.
Okay.
We're focusing specifically on how we can access our body's own, innate self-healing intelligence through a concept that seems almost too simple. Imagination.
Right. And our main guide for this is the foundational work of Dr. Martin L. Rossman on guided imagery.
Our mission today is to treat imagination not as just fantasy or, escapism, but as a genuinely powerful, scientifically recognized, and largely untapped resource for our physical and emotional well-being.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a shortcut to really understanding the principles and the practical techniques of using imagery for health, you've definitely come to the right place. We're going to give you a thorough, structured understanding with some pretty surprising facts and applications.
And I think it's essential right at the very start to sort of establish a new definition of belief. We often dismiss the idea of belief when we're talking about hard science, but the evidence, especially from clinical trials, it shows that belief and expectation are, they're powerful agents that exert measurable physiological effects.
So they're not just ideas, they're tools.
They are essentially pharmacological tools in their own right, just generated internally.
And the most compelling, the undeniable proof of this has to be the placebo effect. That's where our source material kicks off.
Right.
And we need to underscore a really critical distinction here. The placebo effect does not mean the patient's response is fake.
No, not at all.
It means the therapeutic response is coming entirely from the patient's belief and expectations, their internal story. And that is what's triggering the body's own self-healing mechanisms, completely separate from whatever pill or therapy they got.
Precisely. And the scale of this effect is, it's staggering. Clinical data shows that the placebo response can account for over half the action of some of the most powerful, widely used pharmaceutical drugs. So when you think about the vast resources, the billions of dollars poured into developing drugs to get a 50% efficacy rate, and then you realize the mind is achieving that internally just through expectation. It should fundamentally change how we view our control over our bodies.
That is a statistic that genuinely just shifts the ground under your feet. But to show how far this belief can drive a physical outcome, the sources point to this really famous, almost shocking study from the 1950s.
Oh, this one's a classic.
It involved men who were suffering from severe chest pain, angina pectoris, which is caused by blocked coronary arteries.
At the time, physicians were trying out a new surgical procedure. The idea was to improve heart function by ligating or tying off an internal mammary artery to shunt more blood into the heart muscle.
And the early results looked good, right? It seemed to relieve the intense pain.
It did. So they set up a proper controlled study.
Okay, so you have one group that gets the actual surgery.
Yeah.
But then they introduce the control group, the sham surgery group.
And this is where it gets wild.
These patients were prepared, anesthetized, wheeled into the operating room. An incision was made over the breastbone, a superficial artery was tied off, just enough to convince the patient that the whole procedure had been performed.
But the critical part, the internal shunting, was never done.
And the outcome was
Monumental.
the men who got the sham surgery reported the exact same dramatic relief from their angina pain. And this is the most critical part, they showed the same objective, measurable improvements in heart muscle function and exercise tolerance as the men who got the real invasive operation.
Think about that for a second. This wasn't just subjective, oh, I feel better.
No.
This was improved blood flow, measurable changes in heart function, all driven by the belief that they'd had a successful surgery. It is the definitive proof that the body can mobilize these profound physical resources based on an internal instruction, an expectation.
It just bypasses conscious intent completely.
And it forces the question, right, if the human body can be tricked into healing itself through a superficial wound and suggestion, why can't we learn to harness that power intentionally?
Why does the trigger have to be an accident or based on a deception?
Exactly.
The sources offer another really profound illustration of this, moving from, clinical trials to personal faith. It's the story of a woman named Edna. She was a middle-aged woman, and she had a precancerous condition of the uterine cervix that had been there for over 2 years. Her doctors were getting more and more urgent, recommending immediate biopsies and surgery.
And Edna just adamantly refused. She was a woman of deep, unwavering religious faith. And when her doctors confronted her about the risk, she just said, Jesus will heal me and I don't need surgery.
So the doctors, out of professional obligation, they insisted on one final pap smear. In 6 weeks, I think probably preparing for the worst.
I'm sure they were.
The sources say that 6 weeks later, Edna came back. And not only did her cervix appear completely normal on examination, but the Pap smear report confirmed it. Perfectly normal. No precancerous cells.
Again, we have to be clear, we are not suggesting anyone should forego medical advice.
Of course not.
But this anecdote, it just powerfully illustrates the undeniable physiological impact that deep, resolute belief can have. Whether it's rooted in a surgical expectation or a religious conviction, the body's internal resources were mobilized for complete self-restoration.
And all of this leads us directly to the tool that Dr. Rossman and others propose for harnessing this power deliberately, guided imagery.
Right.
And imagery is defined here as the practical language we use to communicate directly with that innate self-healing intelligence. It's the inner representation of experience, memory, and possibility.
So we're really treating it as a physiological interface, not a philosophical one. Okay, so let's really unpack this core idea. If we accept the monumental power of belief that we see in the placebo effect, that a thought, an expectation can affect heart muscle function, we have to ask the next question.
How? How does an intangible thought, an image, actually translate into a tangible, measurable, physiological change in the body?
Well, now we're moving into the realm of psychophysiology, and imagery is so much more than just the simple mental pictures we usually think of.
Right. It's not just seeing something in your mind's eye.
No. As it's defined in Chapter 2, it's a continuous flow of thoughts that encompasses all 5 senses. What you see, hear, feel, smell, and taste, along with emotions and movement.
It's the native language of the subconscious then. Dreams, daydreams, memory.
It is the currency of dreams and daydreams, exactly.
And the mechanism, the way it translates thought into physical action, is actually surprisingly easy to demonstrate.
Oh, the lemon juice test.
The famous lemon juice test. So for you, the listener, just take a moment right now and vividly imagine this with us. You're holding a perfect, bright yellow lemon. You feel the coolness, the little bumpy texture of the rind.
You slice it open with a sharp knife, you can hear that soft squish, and you smell that powerful, sharp citrus odor.
And now you bring that dripping, sour half to your lips and take a huge, concentrated mouthful of the raw, acidic juice.
And what happens? Almost instantly.
You're salivating. Your stomach might tighten, your lips pucker.
And that's happening because the mere image of the lemon has powerfully stimulated your autonomic nervous system.
And that really is the key takeaway here. The autonomic nervous system regulates all our involuntary functions: salivation, heart rate, digestion, breathing.
Things we normally consider completely beyond our conscious verbal control.
But the lemon test proves that the autonomic nervous system responds immediately and powerfully to imagery.
And that response isn't just about salivating, it's systemic. Decades of research in focused imagery, biofeedback, all these meditative states have demonstrated that our self-regulatory capacity, when you couple it with focused imagery in a relaxed state, can influence a staggering range of functions.
Instead of just rattling off a list of technical terms, let's focus on the control systems involved. So, for instance, focused imagery practice has been shown to alter brainwave rhythms.
Right. It pushes the brain toward the slower, more receptive alpha and theta states.
It also changes respiratory patterns and how much oxygen you consume.
And more critically, it affects the endocrine system. That's the control center for all our hormones and neurotransmitters.
Which means imagery can influence the levels of things like cortisol, the stress hormone, adrenaline, and various endorphins.
Which are the body's natural painkillers.
And maybe the most profound for healing focused imagery actively influences immune system function. It can stimulate or quiet the immune response, which has huge implications for managing everything from infections to chronic inflammatory conditions like arthritis.
We are literally talking about using thought to adjust the levers of the body's major control systems.
So how is this possible? How can we communicate with these involuntary functions?
It's explained beautifully by looking at the concept of the dual brain, the specialized roles of the 2 cerebral hemispheres. This comes from the foundational Nobel Prize-winning work by Dr. Sperry and his colleagues.
We often simplify this, left brain, right brain, but the model is actually vital for understanding imagery.
It is. The left brain is the architect of our logical, sequential, verbal experience. It's concerned with language, analysis, time. It deals with the objective outer world and our social agreements.
It's the part making the grocery list and worrying about traffic.
Exactly. The right brain, however, thinks in simultaneous concepts. Pictures, spatial relationships, feelings, sounds. It grasps the larger context of events. It processes things holistically.
So here's the core insight, the thing that's often missed. Imagery is so effective because it's the silent, symbolic language of the right brain.
That's it. When we engage in focused imagery, we are essentially communicating with the deeper parts of our nervous system in their native language. We're bypassing the left brain's verbal filters, its need to judge or analyze.
And it's concern for what's realistic or not.
Precisely. And if we accept that many chronic illnesses aren't just purely mechanical, but they have emotional, social, or familial origins.
Rudolf Virchow, the father of pathology, said, "Much illness is unhappiness sailing under a physiologic flag."
A great quote. Then the illness can be seen as a manifestation of an inner conflict, a disagreement between the logical, social demands of the left brain and the emotional, symbolic needs of the right brain.
So this internal disagreement shows up as a physical symptom.
And the imagery process allows the right brain to present that conflict to us symbolically, which then allows us to process and resolve it.
The case of Jeffrey, the middle manager with recurring peptic ulcers, just illustrates this perfectly.
Ulcers are the classic physical manifestation of unexpressed internal tension.
So Jeffrey initially used simple, active imagery. He saw the pain as a fire and imagined an ice-cold mountain stream putting it out. And it worked for a little while.
But the underlying cause was still there, so the pain came back. This time, when prompted, he let the image of the pain form spontaneously on its own.
And it was initially a painful hand pinching his stomach. So he engaged in a dialogue with the image. He asked it that classic question, "Why are you angry?"
And the image transformed. It became a shaking, clenched fist, like a transparent sack containing a chaotic whirling of things inside.
Wow.
That chaotic whirling was the symbolic truth of his suppressed emotional life. The fist told him that a vital part of him was locked away where no one can see it, and it's getting badly hurt.
So what did he discover?
Through this receptive imagery, he discovered that he was locking away traumatic, painful childhood memories related to his abusive father, feelings he had never fully processed or expressed.
So the ulcer was the physical flag, waving to signal this emotional blockage.
Exactly. The power here is in that synthesis. The physical symptom, the ulcer, it didn't just disappear, it became his teacher. By using imagery over several weeks to visualize and process those locked-away feelings, Jeffrey obtained long-term relief.
But more importantly, he learned to acknowledge and express his emotional needs in his real life. The illness stopped being a debilitating problem and became a catalyst for his psychological wellness.
So while accessing this deep symbolic wisdom is clearly powerful, it does require some structure.
Right, you can't just jump in.
The source material really emphasizes that abstract concepts like imagery have to have a stable foundation. And that foundation, as detailed in Chapter 4, is deep physiologic relaxation.
And we need to understand why relaxation is so mandatory. The core reason is that the most common and frankly damaging form of imagery that we all engage in daily is worry. Worry is just uncontrolled, negative imagination. It activates the fight-or-flight response, reacting not just to real threats, but to anticipated future dangers and rehearsed past regrets. It just exhausts the system.
And when worry activates the sympathetic nervous system, it's highly, highly taxing. Dr. Hans Selle, through his groundbreaking work, he defined this response as the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS.
It has 3 phases, right?
It does. The first phase is alarm. The body recognizes a threat and mobilizes resources. Adrenaline surges, heart rate increases, blood gets shunted away from digestion and toward the muscles.
The second phase is resistance. If the stress continues, the body tries to cope and adapt. It maintains that mobilization.
This is the state most of us live in chronically, just pumping out cortisol to manage a continuous perceived threat.
And the final phase is exhaustion. The body's resources are depleted. This is where unrelieved chronic stress contributes to the vast majority of modern illnesses: heart disease, hypertension, certain cancers, inflammatory disorders.
We're talking about stress as a major contributing factor in over 3/4 of cases where significant physical illness develops.
That's a staggering number.
To visualize the true cost, Dr. Balin's Chinese energy model gives a great analogy. He says we're born with inherited ancestral energy. Think of this as your long-term savings account.
Okay.
We supplement this with energy from food and breath. That's your daily checking account.
Right.
High, unrelieved stress is like constantly overdrawing that checking account, forcing you to tap into your ancestral savings. Illness is the overdraft notice. It's a signal of profound depletion.
And relaxation, when you practice it deliberately, is the direct reversal of that fight-or-flight response.
Right.
It's the mechanism that flips the switch from mobilization to restoration.
It channels energy back into the body's repair systems, replenishing those depleted energy stores.
We see the simple but profound impact of this in the story of Ed. He was a man who was constantly tense and worried, plagued by chronic infections, severe daily headaches, and constant hay fever.
He was just a textbook case of chronic stress manifestation.
And by simply incorporating a daily structured relaxation practice, Ed reported feeling already 90% better within a single week.
Just a week.
His symptoms, the headaches, the allergy issues, they subsided dramatically over time. This just shows that before you can use imagery for something complex, you first have to master the art of stepping off the stress treadmill.
Learning to relax deeply is the foundational, indispensable skill for self-healing. It's not something you're born doing well in our modern society. It has to be learned, like the coordination for playing an instrument.
But the payoff is rapid and immense.
It is.
For the listener who's interested in starting, the practical steps are pretty straightforward, but they are non-negotiable. You need a quiet space, a comfortable position sitting or lying down where you can completely let go, and the commitment to 25 uninterrupted minutes.
And making arrangements to ensure no disturbances, that's part of the commitment to relaxation itself.
Once that basic physical and mental relaxation is achieved, Chapter 5 moves to deepening it, using imagery itself.
Because deep relaxation is what facilitates that receptive state of mind that's most conducive to the sophisticated work of imagery. It gets the left brain out of the way.
And the standard technique for this deepening is a simple yet really effective script. It usually involves counting down a staircase, say 10 steps, leading to a beautiful, peaceful, serene, and safe inner place.
Each step is a descent into deeper comfort, deeper focus.
And this inner place is paramount. It becomes your sanctuary, your home base for all future imagery work. It has to be totally and personally safe. It can be a real place you know well, or an idealized natural setting, a meadow, a beach, or something entirely imagined.
Dr. Rossman notes that this place absolutely has to be personally meaningful. He had one patient, for example, who felt safest in a quiet, special section of a Las Vegas casino playing slot machines.
Wow, that's not what I would have pictured.
Right. But while it's unexpected, if that environment provides that individual with a profound sense of safety and serenity, that's what matters.
And here's the instructional detail that I think is often overlooked.
Yeah.
To make this inner place effective, you have to incorporate all the sensory details.
Yes. Don't just visualize the sight of the water. Hear the gentle lapping sound. Smell the salt in the air. Feel the warm sun on your skin or the soft moss under your feet.
And why is that so important?
Because communicating with the lower brain centers, the autonomic nervous system, is done most effectively through that sensory saturation. The more real and comprehensive the sensory input, the more strongly the body receives the all-clear message, allowing for complete relaxation and therapeutic engagement.
Okay, so we've laid the foundation with deep relaxation. Now, this is where we move beyond simple stress management into, well, truly intentional self-knowledge. Once you are deep within your inner sanctuary, the source material suggests you can summon a profound guide, the inner advisor.
And the inner advisor is not some mystical entity. It's a symbolic representation of your own inner wisdom, your accumulated life experience, and your intuition. It's an inner ally.
So it's designed to make that subtle, intuitive guidance accessible.
Exactly. Since the right brain perceives subtle cues and grasps connections that linear logic might miss, the advisor is that right brain wisdom given a form, a voice.
And the beauty of it is that it can accept whatever form is most meaningful to you.
Right. While it often shows up as that archetype of the wise old man or wise old woman, the source notes endless possibilities. It could be a simple translucent light, a mythological figure like Merlin, a contemporary figure like Yoda, or even an animal Bambi, a chipmunk, a great owl.
The rule is simply to accept whatever arrives without judgment.
And the core purpose of this advisor is singular. To help you understand the nature of your problem, what part you are playing in maintaining it, often unconsciously, and the part you can play in your own recovery.
So they offer support, compassion, and crucial, personalized insight.
Exactly.
Let's look deeper into some of these dialogues, because this is where the process of healing is really revealed. Let's take Frank, the 28-year-old former naval officer with chronic asthma recurrence.
Okay. Frank's advisor, who was a stern old man working on a machine, called himself the helper.
And this figure reminded Frank of his deceased, demanding grandfather.
Right. And through their dialogue, the advisor revealed that Frank's current job, which was physically exhausting and felt totally obligatory, was triggering the same feelings he had during his childhood abuse, specifically when he was forced to sweep the horse barn, which had triggered his very first wheezing attacks.
So the insight was this powerful moment of recontextualization. The advisor, the Hemper, he wasn't offering a cure for his lungs.
No, he was offering psychological wisdom. He said, "You are a grown man now. You can choose which jobs you are willing to do."
And Frank realized his asthma was rooted in this old feeling of powerless obligation.
By integrating that insight that he now had a choice, he was able to navigate his professional obligations differently. And the asthma recurrence ended. It remained resolved because he had addressed the core emotional fuel for the symptom.
Or there's the equally powerful case of Alice.
Hmm.
She was holding this tremendous fear after a major cancer scare, which was leading to persistent, debilitating back pain.
She met her advisor, who was Merlin. And Alice admitted she was terrified of her upcoming checkup, but she felt she couldn't show her fear because her family was already so scared.
And Merlin's response was just incredibly compassionate and specific. He said, "They are already scared."
Just that one line, that single line of acknowledgement was the key.
Alice realized her attempts to protect her family were transparent, and they were only locking the fear inside her, where it was manifesting as physical pain.
The insight allowed her to immediately communicate her vulnerability to her husband, who was just relieved to finally know what she was holding back.
And her back pain resolved significantly. It wasn't just emotional relief. It was the realization that the physical pain was an internal signal asking for expression.
And my favorite is Eric, the jet-setting entertainer who was furious at his swollen ankle for forcing him to cancel these lucrative digs.
His advisor didn't show up as some Zen master.
No, he showed up as a cartoon devil poking the ankle with a pitchfork.
A devil. So why a devil?
Because Eric saw his body's needs, rest, relaxation, reflection as annoyances, as the devil tempting him away from his holy work ethic. The devil's message was blunt but ultimately nurturing. He told Eric he was addicted to the grind and needed to dedicate time for reflection and enjoyment.
So the ankle was just the manifestation of his body screaming a message he was failing to respect.
Right. The imagery helped him reframe his need for rest, not as a professional failure, but as a necessary negotiation with his own well-being.
Now, a key point of discrimination has to be made here. This is detailed in Chapter 8. Sometimes the first figure who appears is hostile or judgmental or punitive.
This is the inner critic. It's often the voice of the judgmental superego, reflecting harsh authority figures from our past.
And the critic's message is usually simple and destructive, like, "You're not good enough," or "You deserve this pain."
It lacks that simultaneous wisdom and caring that characterizes a true advisor.
So the strategy isn't to fight the critic, but to engage it while asserting control.
The remarkable example is Iris, a 26-year-old struggling with anxiety, depression, and weight loss. Her first advisor was a wicked witch figure, very reminiscent of her hypercritical mother.
And the witch just chastised her, offered no constructive path.
So Iris was instructed to assert control. She visualized the witch dissolving, just like in The Wizard of Oz.
And that act of assertive imagery marked a turning point.
Over time, and with sustained practice, that hostile figure transformed into a supportive maternal friend. Iris gained a deeper, more empathetic understanding of her own mother's damaged upbringing, realizing that critical voice wasn't hers alone.
And by resolving that conflict with the internalized critical voice, she successfully managed her anxiety and achieved her weight loss goals.
The goal is always integration, not elimination.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time on receptive imagery, listening to the unconscious mind through the advisor or through symptom dialogue. But healing also requires intentional direction. So we have to now transition to active imagery, which is about communicating our deliberate goals to the unconscious mind to facilitate restoration.
Receptive and active imagery are designed to work together. Receptive imagery provides the awareness. What is the problem? What's the conflict?
And active imagery provides the intention. What is the desired outcome?
It's the process of imagining your desired goal as if it is already achieved while you maintain that relaxed, passive state of mind.
When you're creating this healing image, the source really emphasizes that its effectiveness relies heavily on personal meaning. The image has to resonate deeply with you and evoke a strong, positive emotional response. It has to feel powerful and right.
And there's an ongoing debate in the literature about anatomical accuracy versus symbolic meaning.
Right, like should you picture white blood cells attacking cancer cells?
Exactly. Some studies suggest that detailed anatomical visualization can be effective. However, Dr. Rossman notes that symbolic representation is often more powerful because it speaks directly to the right brain's language.
And if we think back to that critique, this is a crucial distinction. Why is it often easier to heal through a symbolic image, like a golden scraper, than by visualizing actual T cells?
Because the subconscious mind doesn't typically deal in microbiology. It deals in metaphors of conflict, cleansing, protection, restoration.
So if you try to force an anatomically accurate image that doesn't feel emotionally resonant,
The left brain will often interrupt saying, I don't know what a T cell looks like, or that's unrealistic. A personal, powerful symbol, however, bypasses that judgment and speaks directly to the deeper healing centers.
the case studies of creative active imagery are just fantastic examples of this symbolic power. Take the patient with a severely herniated lumbar disc. Surgeons were recommending an immediate operation.
Instead, he visualized his physical problem symbolically. He pictured the disc rupture being sucked back into the sac and the tear sealing up like the diaphragm of a camera.
That's so specific.
It was a mechanical, self-repair image that felt intensely real to him. And within weeks, he was walking without pain and recovered fully without needing the surgery.
And there's another powerful case involving a woman with endometriosis. She visualized the disease as this thick, sticky tar stuck to her pelvic organs.
And her active imagery involved a meticulous, multi-step cleansing process, using a golden suction cup to remove the bulk, a sharp scraper to dislodge the residue, and finally, a mop to clean the whole area.
And the result was?
Remarkable. 3 months later, a laparoscopy performed by her physician showed no visible disease.
Wow.
The image was personally evocative. It represented purification and complete removal. It was her healing narrative, and her body responded to it.
We also talked about the businessman with a peptic ulcer, who simply visualized his ulcer being sprayed with a cooling white foam 3 times a day.
And he sustained healing, remained ulcer-free for several years. These are not medical diagrams. They are potent restorative narratives born from the individual's subconscious.
Active imagery also involves a critical step: learning to dialogue directly with the symptom itself, especially if the inner advisor gave you limited information.
First, you allow the image of the symptom to spontaneously form. That's the receptive step. Then you engage in the dialogue. What does the image want? What does it need? How does it feel about the change you're proposing?
We saw this beautifully with Alexandra, a 30-year-old worried sick about benign lumps in her breast. Initially, she saw them as rough rocks, obstructing flow, something hostile she needed to fight.
But when she engaged them in dialogue, her perception shifted dramatically. She was asked to look closer, and she realized the rocks were smooth, shiny, lustrous pearls.
Pearls.
The lumps were symbolically interpreted as protection pearls formed in response to continuous irritation, attempting to wall off the source of stress.
So the profound insight she gained was that she didn't need to fight the lumps. She needed to address the source of irritation, the chronic external stress in her life.
So she changed her demanding work schedule, her lifestyle, she prioritized rest, and within a few months, the lumps disappeared. The dialogue shifted her from opposition to understanding.
It's so important to stress this, though. Imagery is not wishful thinking.
Absolutely not. If an image of healing feels too good to be true, you have to apply discrimination. Test it against your current reality or ask your inner advisor for confirmation.
The approach should always be sensible. Minimize unnecessary risks, but maximize the potential for benefit by aligning your conscious intention with your subconscious healing wisdom.
Now we come to the section that is, well, perhaps the most critical for sustained success: grounding.
Right.
Insight, no matter how profound, whether it comes from Merlin or the devil or a healing pearl, it's just entertainment if it remains purely intellectual or emotional. We have to translate the wisdom gained from imagery into real-world measurable change.
That's the process of bringing the insight down to earth. Roberto Assagioli, the founder of psychosynthesis, gives us this great metaphor for the will. The will is like the captain of a ship, not the engine. It's the one controlling the tiller. The goal is what he called skillful will, obtaining your desired results with the least expenditure of energy.
And the problem is that most people stop after the aha moment.
They do.
They jump from insight directly to action and often fail because they skip all the intermediate steps. The source material details a structured 7-stage process for grounding insight into action, a modification used by Dr. Rossman, which ensures the insight actually sticks.
Okay, so the first stage is clarifying the aim. You have to write down the goal simply and clearly, and then, most importantly, Identify the most important word in that goal.
Let's stick with Al, the salesman suffering from back pain, who had an insight that he needed to relax.
Right, so Al wrote, I will learn to be more relaxed. Now, if he underlines learn, the focus is on acquiring skills, maybe relaxation techniques.
If he underlined I, the focus is on his choice and responsibility, which can be critical if he normally blames others.
And if he underlined relaxed, the focus is simply on the desired state. So choosing the most important word helps focus all the subsequent energy.
Stage 2 is deliberation. This is the brainstorming phase. Write down every possible way to achieve that clarified aim, no matter how silly or unrealistic the ideas seem.
So non-judgmental brainstorming. It uses the creative, symbolic mind we just activated in the imagery session.
Exactly. Stage 3 is choosing. From that list of possibilities, you select the 1 or 2 most feasible and promising options to test. You move from boundless possibilities to a concentrated focus.
Stage 4 is affirming. This is simple, but really potent. You repeat the choice aloud, maybe 4 or 5 times. I choose to dedicate 25 minutes a day to relaxation.
The act of speaking the choice wholeheartedly puts your conscious energy and resolve behind the plan.
Stage 5 is planning. This translates the vision into a logical, linear plan that can be reviewed and acted upon. This is where you figure out the specifics. Who do I need to talk to? What specific task has to be done? When and where will this happen?
This phase grounds the emotional choice in logistical reality.
Stage 6 is mental rehearsal. This is a beautiful bridge between imagery and reality. You imagine carrying out the plan successfully from start to finish, and crucially, you also anticipate obstacles and practice overcoming them mentally.
This rehearsal overcomes reluctance and refines the plan before you expend any real-world energy.
And finally, stage 7 is acting. You carry out the plan in real life, and you remain observant of your thoughts and feelings throughout.
Al's case study provides the perfect illustration of how critical that mental rehearsal is. His clarified aim was to be relaxed, but his subconscious resistance was guilt. He felt guilty about taking time to loaf.
Right.
So when he was planning his relaxation technique, he realized he needed his wife's support. During mental rehearsal, he actually practiced asking his wife for help, and he imagined the positive feeling of being refreshed and pleasant after the session, which was a stronger feeling than the guilt he felt about taking the time before.
His advisor even suggested adding a positive reward to the plan-making time for a special dinner with his wife afterward.
Which helped the relaxation feel like it paid off for everyone, resolving his guilt complex. Mental rehearsal allowed him to smooth out all those emotional wrinkles before the real conversation ever happened.
The last major hurdle in this process is confronting what we call resistance, or the loyal opposition. The surest sign you are resisting is finding yourself stopping your practice or making insightful changes, but failing to act on them, or just repeatedly letting other things get in the way.
But resistance should never be judged harshly. It is a psychological defense mechanism. Its intent is often to protect the self, frequently from facing deeper pain or change.
So when resistance comes up, we have to treat it with respect and find out why it's there.
The case of Max, a man dealing with a recurrence of cancer, perfectly illustrates resistance blocking healing. Max was a very concrete thinker, and he initially visualized his aggressive tumor only as an inert black rock on a wall he had drawn.
His imagery was completely stagnant.
Max was determined to fight the cancer, but his internal landscape was completely blocked. So through dialogue, he explored the rock. He found it sat atop a high bluff, separated by a deep, terrifying chasm from his wife and children. Max realized the resistance wasn't about the cancer. It was an inner conflict about his family and his profound feeling of weakness, which separated him from his loved ones, the very people he needed most for support.
He expressed despair. He said he wasn't strong enough to throw a rope across the chasm.
So his guide encouraged him to recall times in his life when he was strong. For a week, Max just practiced recalling powerful, specific life moments of personal strength.
And this practice resolved the internal conflict about his weakness.
The following week, he was able to imagine throwing the rope and building a bridge across the chasm. Once that psychological conflict was resolved, once he addressed the core issue that was blocking his access to his inner strength, his healing imagery became active, aggressive, and effective against the tumor.
Resistance revealed the key component of his healing that had been previously ignored.
Exactly.
So this deep dive has provided you with a really comprehensive toolkit, all derived from Dr. Rossman's seminal work. We started with a physiological proof that belief is biological power, demonstrated by the placebo effect and that sham surgery study.
We recognized imagination as a resource that communicates directly with the autonomic nervous system.
We established the absolute necessity of physiologic relaxation as the antidote to chronic stress and worry, and we detailed the creation of the inner place.
And we covered the primary tools for gaining inner wisdom, meeting the inner advisor and engaging in receptive dialogue with symptoms to gain awareness.
We then moved to active imagery, using symbolic personal intention to communicate restoration. And finally, stress the non-negotiable process of grounding insight through the 7 stages of skillful will.
While treating resistance not as a failure, but as the loyal opposition, signaling a need for deeper resolution, remember, the source material explicitly calls you, the listener, your own primary research laboratory.
And, as with any learned skill, knowledge is only valuable when you apply it. Sustained daily practice, even 15 to 45 minutes for a few weeks, is necessary to condition your system to relax and respond consistently to your imagery cues.
And this work is complementary to, not a replacement for, any necessary medical treatment.
So let's leave you with one final thought to explore on your own, and it stems from that powerful negotiation concept. The source instructs us to adopt the attitude of a good negotiator or arbitrator when we're dealing with a negative image or a symptom.
So, if your symptom or your resistance is the opposing party, stop fighting it for a moment and ask, what does it want most from you? Is it rest, acknowledgement of a past hurt, expression of fear, or a drastic change in your professional life?
And once you identify that core non-negotiable need, what is the single clear term you can offer in return right now? A term that guarantees you will meet that need in a way that allows the healing process to move forward.
That shift from fighting your body to negotiating for mutual benefit is the entire journey of self-knowledge.